What is happening on a Thursday night? Thanks for joining us as always. Crafts and Kickoffs, the last episode of this podcast until we do a special free agency episode coming up in about a month. So, for the last time to put a final wrap on this 2024 NFL season, I ask you, as I always ask you each and every week during the season, what are you drinking tonight? What are you having to drink? I have a Midnight in Munich. This is a Munich Dunkel. This is from Mayflower Brewing Company. So you can check them out. Here you go. Nice little purple can that they've got. And it is a 5% ABV, which is fantastic because it's just dark enough. It's a Munich Dunkel, but it's only 5%, so it's light. And I say Prost to all of you on this Thursday. We have a lot of football to get to. I want to talk about Aaron Rodgers being cut by the New York Jets. I want to talk about the new head coach in New Orleans. I want to talk about Brock Purdy. I want to talk about the future for both the Eagles and the Chiefs. But before I get to all of that, let's see what you're drinking. Robert Landry says Tito's, soda water, splash of cranberry juice, and a lime wedge. Sounds very nice. I don't drink liquor. I just drink beer. But I know a lot of people that love their Tito's and soda water with the splash of cran. So enjoy that drink, Robert. Thanks for joining us on this Thursday night. Ram comes in with a Stone Cold Steve Austin lager, little 316 action for you. I think I've had the lager. I haven't had the IPA or whatever it is. So let me know how that is, Ram. I appreciate your thoughts and letting us know what you're drinking tonight. Maryland, of course. Oh, this is one of my wife's, Kelly's, favorite beers. She just bought some of this on Saturday before the snowstorm, quote unquote, hit us before the Super Bowl. Sam Adams Cold Snap. Kelly loves Cold Snap. She absolutely loves Cold Snap. So she might be having one with you right now, as a matter of fact, in the other room. I'm not sure. Thanks for checking in, Maryland. Charlie jumps in, starts the party with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Charlie, for the $10 super chat. I appreciate the contribution. Long Trail Ale, that's a very good beer. Cheers and love this podcast this season. Thank you, Charlie. And again, we will be doing a free agency episode sometime in March, about a month from now. So thank you, Charlie, for jumping in. And thank you for the super chat. It is very much appreciated. All right, let's get started with story number 5. Story number 5 is going to be a quick one. The New Orleans Saints hire Kellen Moore to be their new head coach. Now, we talked about this going back a week or two ago. It looked like this is where it was headed, and this is where it went. So Kellen Moore is the new head coach of the New Orleans Saints. That is the final head coaching job filled during this hiring cycle. Again, it was expected a couple of weeks ago. If you're Kellen Moore, you strike while the iron's hot. Just won the Super Bowl, had a fantastic playoff with the Philadelphia Eagles, and now he gets to go down to New Orleans and run his own program. I will say this about Kellen Moore. I don't know if he's going to work out. I don't know if he'll work out. You never know if a head coach is going to work out when he's a first-time head coach, but I will say this about Kellen Moore. He changed a lot of perceptions about him. When he went to Philadelphia, he was known as a pass-happy coordinator. Loved to throw the football. Love to throw the football. Then he went to Philly. They signed Saquon Barkley, and all of a sudden he became a guy who loved calling the run game. And Saquon Barkley led this offense to the Super Bowl. Hurts had a fantastic Super Bowl on Sunday night, but Kellen Moore changed. He changed his system. He changed what he likes to do as a play caller, usually pass happy, went with running the football. It worked out, obviously, with a Super Bowl title at the end of the year. So Kellen Moore's ability to emphasize the run with Saquon Barkley, and I know some of you might say, well, Nick, that's easy. It's Saquon Barkley. But a lot of play callers, they're stubborn. My system is my system. I believe in what I believe in. I couldn't care less about the personnel. I'm going to call what I call. I love to throw the football as an OC. I'm going to keep throwing the football. Moore was not stubborn. He took what he was given with Saquon Barkley and that offensive line, and he utilized it to the best of that team's ability, and it resulted in a Super Bowl. New Orleans is no joke. It's a tough job. Who's the quarterback? Is it Derek Carr? Is it going to be somebody else? Who is that somebody else? Free agency, the draft. New Orleans is a very tough job because not only you've got to answer the quarterback question, but you also are $54 million in the red. They've got salary cap issues for days. They've had salary cap issues for years. They are the 16th oldest team in the NFL, which means they're the 16th youngest team in the NFL, smack dab in the middle. And when you look at the division, it's an interesting division because you've got Tampa with Baker Mayfield. They've had a good couple of years. You've got Atlanta with Michael Penix. Is that going to help turn that team around and possibly make them a playoff team? You've got Carolina. Bryce Young showed up, played well, right, at the end of the season with Dave Canales as the new head coach. So that division is interesting, but I think it's a tough job. Tough job for Kellen Moore. All right, before we get to story number 4, don't forget to help us out. Because of your support, we continue to grow. The Nick Cattles channel on YouTube continues to grow. This podcast continues to grow. We're not on Twitter anymore because I'm not paying the $8 a month. And that's the only way that you can actually stream on Twitter, which is ridiculous to me, but it is what it is. So all of the help that you can give us means the world to us. So don't forget to click that thumbs up as you watch. Click the thumbs up on YouTube. Click the thumbs up on Facebook. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your fellow NFL fans about this podcast, Crafts and Kickoffs on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. during the football season. So don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. The comments are very, very important. Caveman Curtis says, I'm for it, Ram, LOL, which I will get to what he's for coming up in a minute as I see Ram super chat. But don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, and don't forget to subscribe. We're trying to hit 6,000 subscribers by free agency. That is March 10th. So we're just under a month away. And we are about, 130 subscribers away from hitting that goal of 6,000. So like, comment, and subscribe. Let's go to Ram Super Chat. $15 Super Chat. Thank you, Ram, for the 15. Will Crafts and Kickoffs be replaced with beers and body slams for WrestleMania season? I'm a big wrestling fan. You know, I've been going back and forth about this, Ram, doing a wrestling podcast. I've gone against the idea because I just kind of want to be a fan. But I can always change my mind. I love wrestling. I love talking wrestling. But I spend my life talking about sports. And when you devote your life to sports talk, which, look, I'm not complaining. Trust me, I'm not complaining. But when you do talk as much about sports as I do, not to say that you become less of a fan, but you watch it differently. It becomes work. And so wrestling is not work for me. I can kind of kick back and watch it and enjoy what I enjoy, if that makes sense. But I have kicked around the idea. I've kicked around the idea a few times about doing a possible wrestling podcast. Thank you again for the $15 super chat. $10 super chat from Anonymous. Congratulations, Nick, on a great season of Crafts and Kickoffs. Thank you, Anonymous. I appreciate your support, as I always do. Thank you for the 10. All right, let's get to story number 4. Story number 4. Aaron Rodgers is done in New York. It's over. Now, Jay Glazer, this past weekend before the Super Bowl, reported that Rodgers flew to New Jersey, spoke to management, and management kindly let Rodgers know that he was not going to be back as a New York Jet. They were moving on. Now, since that Jay Glazer report, we've had more reporting. Diana Rossini of The Athletic wrote about Aaron Rodgers this week. Here's what she wrote. The Rodgers era is over, though the team did present Rodgers with a potential plan to move forward with him as their quarterback in 2025. It included stipulations about outside media work during the season and a requirement that he attend all mandatory offseason workouts, according to team and league sources. Heading into the meeting, the Jets were undecided on whether to go forward with Rodgers, but were open to the possibility if Rodgers agreed to make adjustments. Now, what are we talking about? We're talking about the Pat McAfee show. The Jets told Aaron Rodgers, we don't want you doing the Pat McAfee show during the football season. We're not interested in you doing that show. You're going to have to step away from being a weekly guest on the Pat McAfee show if you want to be the starting quarterback of the New York Jets in 2025. That was one of the adjustments they wanted. Another adjustment that they wanted was that Rodgers would be required to attend all mandatory practices. Now, of course, last year, Rodgers missed 2 mandatory minicamp practices because of a previously scheduled vacation to Egypt, as if he couldn't find any other time in his life to go to Egypt but during a mandatory practice or 2. It was absolutely ridiculous. I called it ridiculous when it happened last year. It's inexcusable to me that a guy who runs around and calls himself a leader and tries to tell the rest of his team to take things seriously and to take football seriously, to miss 2 mandatory minicamp practices because you decided to get up and go to Egypt. I don't care if you had it planned. It was ridiculous. And so the Jets, they sat down Rodgers when he flew to New Jersey and told him, no Pat McAfee show, and you've got to go to mandatory practices. If you can't do that, we're moving on. And apparently Rodgers said he did not want to do that. And I love the Jets drawing the line in the sand. That's what they should have done. Enough is enough, Aaron. You're not going to run around and run this organization. You are not the team president. You are not the team owner. You're not the GM. You're not the head coach. You've become a gigantic distraction. So you either are with the program with the new head coach, Aaron Glenn, or you're not with the program and you get out. It's the right move. Rodgers has been a huge distraction. His 2 years in New York. It's been awful for the Jets organization. And he's 42 years old? I'm all set. If I'm the Jets, I'm all set. And I think Aaron Glenn makes a big-time statement here saying, you either do what we want you to do because you are our employee and we pay you to show up to mandatory practices. We don't pay you to go on Pat McAfee. So you either get with the program or you're out of the program. That's exactly how it should have been handled. So Rodgers is out of the program. It is a new beginning with a new administration. Hopefully, Woody Johnson stays out of their way and allows them to run the football ops the way the football ops should be run. But it does leave an interesting question. What do the Jets do at quarterback? Do they already have something in mind? Are they going to go out and try to sign a free agent? The free agent class isn't great, as we know. Kirk Cousins coming off Achilles. They just dealt with Rodgers coming off Achilles. Sam Darnold, can't imagine he's going back to New York. Russell Wilson, thanks, but no thanks. So free agency, I don't know if you have the answer there. I don't think you do. And the Jets are drafting 7th in April. So do they like one of these quarterbacks? Do they love one of these quarterbacks? Will they have the opportunity to draft one of the quarterbacks? Would they have to move up to draft one of those quarterbacks? So this leaves them with no quarterback on the roster. That tells you how much they felt they needed to move on from Aaron Rodgers. They were willing to walk into the offseason without a legitimate starting quarterback on the roster. That's how tired they were of Aaron Rodgers. What happens with Devontae Adams? I have to imagine he's gone. Have to imagine Devontae Adams is cut and he'll sign somewhere else. And because the Jets officially released a statement and said that they're moving on from Rodgers, Rodgers is now free to talk to any other team in the league. So he can't sign with a team until he's officially cut, which won't happen until the new league year, which is a couple of weeks away. But Rodgers is free to go out and talk to anybody. And right now, the Steelers are the betting favorites. And I got to tell you, if you're Pittsburgh, stay away. Pittsburgh has less weapons than the Jets. Pittsburgh has to focus on the future. They need to find the future at quarterback. Rodgers would be a Band-Aid. How many times are the Steelers going to go through this? Now, they tried to draft Pickett, and they drafted Pickett, and that didn't work out. But they tried the Band-Aid solution this past year, and it failed miserably. They got to the playoffs. They got waxed, lost again. Do the Steelers love being stuck in the middle? Do they love NFL purgatory? Let's get to the playoffs every year, but lose every time the first shot around. Well, let's squeeze in through the back door via wild card and then get blown out in the first round. Is that the yearly plan? Is that the annual plan for the Steelers? It feels that way. I would stay away from Aaron Rodgers. Stay away. All right, what are you drinking tonight? I've got let me grab the can here. I've got a Midnight in Munich. A Munich Dunkel, 5% ABV. This is from Mayflower Brewing Company in Plymouth. my friend Amy's stomping grounds. So there you go with the Midnight in Munich. It is a really good beer. What are you drinking? Let me know what you're drinking as we talk about football. All right. Ricky jumps in, says Daniel Jones, wait for next year to draft a quarterback. Daniel Jones to the Jets. Imagine that. I don't know, man. If I'm Daniel Jones, I'm trying to get away from the tri-state area as fast as possible, Ricky. I want to get out of there as fast as possible. Chris Chapman jumps in. $20 super chat. Great season of the podcast. I have enjoyed it and the beer. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate the support as always. I appreciate the $19.99 if we want to be specific here and technical. But thank you for the super chat. It means an awful lot to me, Chris, as does your support across many of the podcasts and much of the work that I do. And speaking of Chris, he's having a Sam Adams like Maryland tonight. So it's a big Sam Adams night. Big Sam Adams night at the bar tonight. What are you drinking? What are you drinking? Enjoy it on a Thursday night. Let's get to story number 3. Speaking of quarterbacks, the 49ers are going to pay Brock Purdy. Throw a comment in. Let me know how you feel about that. If you were the Niners, would you pay Brock Purdy? He's going to make, I would imagine, I don't know, $45, $50 million a year. Would you pay Brock Purdy if you were the San Francisco 49ers? Throw a comment in. Don't forget to click that thumbs up as well. Purdy has 1 year left on his deal. It's a shade over $5.25 million for the cap hit. And the 49ers want to get a deal done. Diana Rossini wrote this about Brock Purdy. They will get it done. And the 49ers aren't dragging their feet. The team wants a deal soon and have started conversations with Purdy's camp. Rossini writes, this was always the plan. The Niners have never wavered on Purdy as their franchise quarterback, not after his breakout run, not after leading them to a Super Bowl, and definitely not now after a disappointing 2024 season. Now, Jed York, the owner of the Niners, he came out publicly last week at the Super Bowl and said, we want Brock here for a long, long time. I believe we will make that happen. So would you do it? Ricky says he's out. Ricky's out on Purdy. Chris is in on Purdy. Yes, with a thumbs up. Ricky says just wait and franchise him. I don't hate that idea, Ricky. I do not hate that idea. Chris says he's in on Purdy because he wins, and there are just so many Mac Jones and Zach Wilsons out there. Allison says no, she would not sign Purdy to that big fat contract extension. Robert Landry says he would. Caveman Curtis says I wouldn't pay Purdy that kind of money, but someone will. So it seems pretty split. We got some yeses and we got some nos. This is the quarterback dilemma. If you move on from a quarterback, you've got to be confident that you can replace that quarterback with somebody as good, if not better. And so that's the $1 million question, or maybe the $100 million question for the 49ers. You've got Purdy for one more year. Now, do you try to get ahead of things at quarterback? Do you try to draft a quarterback this year? Do you try to look at the free agency class a year from now and try to figure out who you could bring in? That's obviously very difficult. Matt says, I would hold my nose, but sign the deal. Charlie says, not a big contract, team-friendly deal, in my opinion. So if you're the Niners, he's got one more year left on his deal. Now, that should give you some leverage to get a deal done. But how much money are you willing to pay? Again, it's really difficult to replace a quarterback in the NFL. It's easier if you have a top 5 pick, and that year there's, at least a couple of quarterbacks that are franchise guys or could be franchise guys. But it's incredibly difficult. We see teams move on from quarterbacks all the time, and they think they're going to get better, but they don't. Look at the Raiders. The Raiders moved on from Derek Carr. I'm not telling you Derek Carr is a great quarterback, but the Raiders moved on from Carr, and they got stuck with what they got stuck with. And it wasn't very good. And now the Raiders are stuck in quarterback hell, trying to figure out how they're going to get that next guy. It happens a lot in the NFL. So it's very, very difficult to replace a quarterback, even if that quarterback is mid, is average, let alone somebody who has had at least one good year in Purdy and helped get them to the Super Bowl, as Marilyn pointed out. So it's a very, very difficult decision to make. Here's how I feel with Purdy. I don't think Purdy is the quarterback that will elevate others. If you sign Purdy, which I understand, I do understand signing Purdy, because there's no guarantee that you can replace that guy. There's no guarantee that you're going to upgrade the quarterback position. But if you sign Purdy, you have to understand he is not the kind of franchise quarterback that is going to elevate everybody around him. He's just not that guy. He needs most things to be perfect around him to play his best football. Brandon Ayuk went down this year. It was a little bit of a mess. Trent Williams missed some games. It was a mess. So if you're going to sign Purdy, you best support him. And I mean support him in a big way. He needs weapons. He needs those weapons to be healthy. He needs a very good offensive line. He needs things to be near perfect to be considered somewhere close to the top 10 in quarterbacks. Now, the market's the market. Quarterbacks get paid a lot of money. Teams don't have much control over that. So if you're going to keep Purdy, you might even know he's like the 14th, 15th quarterback in the league, whatever number you put next to him. But you also understand that you've got to pay him the market price, because if you don't, he's going to walk. And when he walks, he's going to get somebody else to pay him. So that's the problem. You're going to pay him a lot of money, but he also needs a lot of help around him, which means you need to absolutely kill the draft. You need to be a great drafting team if you're San Francisco, because that's the best way that you're going to be able to bring him in. That's the best way. He's not going to elevate a bunch of other people. Now, he struggled this year. He struggled late in the year. And again, some of that had to do with Ayuk not being around. Some of that had to do with Trent Williams not being around. Some of that just had to do with him. He's not necessarily great in the fourth quarter. He has not been necessarily great trying to lead his team to comebacks. So you have to know what you have in Brock Purdy if you decide to pay him the money they're going to pay him. And the question that I have is, what about Kyle Shanahan? Is Kyle Shanahan's seat warm? I don't think so. I don't think he's there yet. But if you go into 2025 and the 49ers are not necessarily competing for a playoff spot, if that happens, Shanahan's seat could start getting warm. He's been out in San Francisco for a while now. And so do you trust Brock Purdy if you move on from Shanahan eventually? Who is Brock Purdy as a quarterback without Shanahan, who's a very good play caller, very good play designer, right? So who is Purdy with another head coach? If Shanahan eventually leaves, how does that impact your quarterback? And San Francisco, you got to believe they have some Trey Lance PTSD. You got to believe they have that PTSD from making that bold move, trading up and drafting Trey Lance and getting really nothing out of that. So fascinating decision for the 49ers. All right, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Help a brother out. That's what we do as we drink beers on Thursday nights. Last crafts and kickoffs for the football season. We will be back for free agency about a month from now. But until then, enjoy the drink tonight. I'm drinking a Midnight in Munich Dunkel from Mayflower Brewing. Have that sip. Tastes good. Tastes good on a Thursday night. Get your weekend off to a little bit of an earlier start. I believe it's Ricky. I don't know how to pronounce the last name. Sorry. RN, $5 super chat. Thank you. Got to pay him. Can't replace Purdy. Rodgers will go to Cleveland. All right. I could buy that. But man, oh man, if Rodgers goes to Cleveland, can you imagine? And thanks for the 5 again. Can you imagine how much money the Browns are paying for a 42-year-old quarterback? Because you're going to pay Rodgers what he's going to get paid, right? I don't know what that would look like, but you're going to pay him at least 30, 35 million. You still have the Deshaun Watson contract on the books. You want to talk about a team that is just dumping money. You might say they're throwing bad money after bad money. They're going to end up paying a ton of money for Deshaun Watson and Aaron Rodgers. I would say that is less than ideal. That is less than ideal. All right, let's get to Kansas City. The Kansas City Chiefs. They got their Tookuses beat down on Sunday night. We all know that. But I want to start to look at the future. This isn't about Sunday night. You've heard enough breakdown of Sunday night. We all watched it. It was a throttling. Kansas City's offensive line was smoked. Philadelphia's defense played fantastic. Jalen Hurts played very well. Kansas City did awesome against the run. They shut down Saquon Barkley, but it didn't matter. But now we look towards the future. Is the window closing for Kansas City? Do you guys and gals think that the window is closing for Kansas City? Do you think Sunday night was the beginning of the end? I personally don't. I don't think that you can say the window is closing when you have Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback. So I don't think you can say that. Now, if Mahomes was 35-36, we could entertain that idea. But with Mahomes, he's what, 30, 31? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Sunday night was the beginning of the end for the Chiefs, that their window is, closing quickly. I'm not going to go there. But I will say this. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Kansas City is going to have as much success over the next couple of years as they have had in the last handful. I think it's far from a foregone conclusion. Look at Kansas City's roster. They don't have a left tackle. Unless Kingsley Suamataia makes a huge leap. He was awful last year. In his rookie season, he was terrible. Is Suamataia going to take that massive leap and go from a train wreck to a starting left tackle? Tough to believe. I would not be confident. I would not bank on Suamataia at left tackle. So the Chiefs, they need a left tackle. I don't think you're going to continue to play Joe Thuney at left tackle. So you start there. They need a left tackle. One of their best offensive linemen, Trey Smith, he's a free agent. Are they going to bring him back? If they can't bring Trey Smith back, if Trey Smith signs a lucrative contract somewhere else, then you don't have a left tackle and you just lost one of your three best offensive linemen because you got Thuney, you've got Humphrey, and you've got Smith. If you lose Smith, now you've got two huge vacancies on your offensive line. Let me ask you this. Do you think Kansas City has a wide receiver one on their roster? Do you think they have a true bona fide number one guy? I think Xavier Worthy's going to get better, but I don't think he's going to be a one. Rashee Rice, I like Rashee Rice on the field. Unfortunately, off the field, he continues to hurt himself. And I don't know if you can ever believe that Rashee Rice is going to be a true number one receiver. And I don't know if you can believe that Rice is going to play 17 games a year for you. Now, maybe he'll figure it out, and hopefully he does for his own sake, but he's been a bit of a mess away from the field. So I don't know what you have in Rice. I like Worthy. I think he's more of a two. Travis Kelce, he's fading. I think he's going to retire. He hasn't announced it yet, but I think he's going to retire. And even if he doesn't retire, there's a lot of wear on those tires. And I don't think Travis Kelce has much left in the tank. If he comes back, it might be one of those, retirement world tours. So you can't bank on Travis Kelce being, as big of a component as he has been. Then you look defensively. Chris Jones turns 31 years old in July. Chris Jones has been their defensive anchor. Chris Jones has been to the defense what Mahomes has been to the offense. And Jones has been hurt multiple times this year. He got banged up on Sunday night. Again, he turns 31 years old in July. So getting a little bit long in the tooth. So if you're the Chiefs, they need a big offseason. if they want to be considered one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the AFC next year, they're going to need a big offseason because they got a hole at left tackle. They might have Trey Smith leave. I don't think they have the answer at wide receiver. They got a lot of questions at wide receiver more than they've got an answer. Travis Kelce, if he doesn't retire, he's, feels like a couple of days away from retiring. Your defensive anchor is 31 in July and has had injuries. He's a bigger guy, right? Defensive lineman. So you got questions about him. And Patrick Mahomes, he relies on athleticism a lot. And as you get older, you don't get more athletic. And statistically, analytically, Mahomes, his last 2 years, he has not been as good as he was the prior 4 or 5 years. Now, of course, he could get motivated, reinvigorated. People thought that Tom Brady was done when he was like 36, 37. And then Brady found that second gear, and he was motivated to prove everybody wrong, and we know how that story ended. So maybe Mahomes, he gets that motivation. He gets, he gets more physically in shape. He works on his athleticism and trying to sustain that athleticism. But until we see it, Mahomes could age like most quarterbacks age. And so you start to look at the pieces around Mahomes, and then you look at Mahomes himself. Again, I'm not saying the window is closing. I would not bet against Kansas City, but I do think there are some significant questions with this roster heading into the offseason, and I do think that they're going to have a great offseason to give themselves a chance to get to the AFC Championship game in 2025. They've got the key components. And I think for the next 3 or 4 years, you've got Mahomes, you've got Andy Reid, you've got Steve Spagnuolo, you've got Brett Veach. So you've got the key components. But this roster, they got to have, a number of come to Jesus meetings with some of the guys on this team. They got to figure it out. Can you depend on Rice? Can you find a tight end that gives you anything near Kelce's production? How much longer does Chris Jones have? Do you believe in Suamataia developing into a starting left tackle? Do you have enough money? Do you want to pay Trey Smith what he's going to get? I mean, there's a lot of questions. All right, before we get to story number 1, don't forget to help us out. I've said it multiple times. Hit that thumbs up. That helps us drive the algorithm. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Do you think the window's closing on the Chiefs? Would you sign Brock Purdy to that big fat money contract extension? Would you be interested in Aaron Rodgers if you were a team that needed a quarterback? Throw a comment in, answer those questions. And don't forget to subscribe. Trying to hit 6,000 subscribers by free agency. We got about a month left. All right. Story number 1. We just talked about Kansas City. We got to talk about the other team from Sunday night. The Eagles. Now, if you look at the Eagles, after their bye week, from their week 5 bye, they were the best team in football. They were the best team in football. Dominant at the line of scrimmage. Jalen Hurts had a tremendous Super Bowl. He played really freaking well in the last Super Bowl they played in against Kansas City. What we've learned about Jalen Hurts is the bigger the game, the better he plays. I mean, the 2 Super Bowls he has started, he's been really good. So, dominance at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football. Saquon Barkley obviously had a huge season. So we look at Kansas City and we question, is the window closing? Meanwhile, we look at Philadelphia, and my question to all of you is, was Sunday night the beginning of a big run? Was Sunday night just the beginning for Philadelphia? Do they have an opportunity? Do they have a chance to make a lot of noise over the next 2, 3 years, 4 years? I think it's on the table. I think you look at Philadelphia, and I think you can believe that they will be one of the best teams in football for at least the next couple of years, if not 3 or 4 years. What we saw on Sunday night could be the end of the Chiefs at least for the next couple of years, and it could be the beginning of a run for Philadelphia. Howie Roseman is the best GM in football. I mean, he has absolutely slaughtered the draft in, like, I don't know what it's been, like 5 of the last 7 years, 3 of the last 5 years. He's been so good at the draft. So good. So you start with Howie Roseman. You have to believe in Howie Roseman if you're Philadelphia. You got to believe in that guy. Did you know Philadelphia is the 10th youngest team in the league? The 10th youngest team in the league. And just look at their defense. Jalen Carter is super young. Cooper DeJean just drafted. Quinyon Mitchell just drafted. Nakobe Dean drafted a couple of years ago. Their defense is very talented, and they are young, which is a dangerous combination. Offensively, Devontae Smith is young. The offensive line is legitimate. They've got a number of, younger guys up front as well. They do have some veterans, but they've got some youth up front as well. Jalen Hurts, obviously, is young. So you look at the youth of this team, you look at this team's GM, who has proven he can build through the draft. They are dangerous. Now, I do have some questions. I got some questions for Philly. Saquon Barkley is 28. A.J. Brown will be 28 in June. So how do those two guys age? Can you depend on Saquon to be as good, or at least close to being as good as he was this past year, next year? We know the history of running backs. Derrick Henry's pretty much the only dude who like at 30 in the past 10, 15 years, who was like, I don't care how old I am, I'm going to continue to truck people. So Saquon, 28. A.J. Brown, going to be 28 in a couple of months. Philly's got some big-time free agents. Mekhi Becton, who everybody thought was dead and buried after his time with the Jets. He was tremendous at guard this year. He's a free agent. Milton Williams, talented defensive lineman. He is a free agent. Zach Bond had an awesome season for Philadelphia. He's a free agent. Josh Sweat is a free agent. So Sweat, Bond, Williams, Becton, some big names, some big-time producers from this Super Bowl team are walking into free agency. Will Howie Roseman be able to keep any of those guys? It's a big-time question. Another question is the division. Will the division improve? I mean, Washington, you feel good, right, with Jaden Daniels. Washington is dangerous. Dallas, I got questions. Brian Schottenheimer, can they stay healthy? The Giants, you hope and you pray to win football games if you're a Giants fan at this point. So I don't think you're going to see this huge turnaround from the NFC East. Not at least for a couple of years. So Philly's set up pretty well, if not really well. They've got an awesome GM. They've got a lot of talent on this team. Their O-line and D-line pretty much intact. You still got Barkley under contract. You still got A.J. Brown under contract. You just gave Devontae Smith a contract. Jalen Hurts, again, big time in the Super Bowl. I don't think that division is going to make a huge turnaround within the next 12 months. And you've got an owner in Jeffrey Lurie who does not mind spending. He does not mind spending. And they've got $18 million in cap space this offseason. The owner doesn't mind spending. The GM does a great job in the draft. So, yeah, I believe the Philadelphia Eagles could be at the beginning of a run here. I believe it's something that could absolutely play out. My goodness, Terry Grant with a $100 super chat on this Thursday. Thank you, Terry. Love the generosity, the support, the contributions that you make. Thank you so much. I know you're drinking your Diet Pepsi on this Thursday night, enjoying the show. Congratulations on a full season of Crafts and Kickoffs. I hate Aaron. Hate's a strong word. Are you sure, Terry? Is it hate? Strong dislike? I believe her. I believe that she does hate Aaron Rodgers. I hate Aaron and want him to go away. Well, it's only a matter of time, Terry. It's only a matter of time before Rodgers is gone. He's 42. I think this is pretty much it for him. If he joins Cleveland, I mean, it's kind of a sad ending, isn't it, for him? He ends his career. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. And he ends his career in Cleveland on a 1-year deal because Deshaun Watson is Deshaun Watson. Terry says, hate. Sorry, but some of it is not football related. Yeah, he's annoying. He's annoying. He's a conspiracy theorist. He's a lot. He's a lot. I'm not a fan. Not a fan at all. Not a fan at all. But Terry, thank you again for the $100 super chat. And the support that you always give this show and my Patriots show that we do on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the Patreon page that I have. Somebody asked me about Alex Bregman earlier. Patreon page. Patreon. Become a member. $5 a month, $1.25 a week. And I did a Breaking Alex Bregman podcast on that Patreon today. Went 20 minutes on Alex Bregman. All right, so here's the deal. Raise your glasses, raise your cans, whatever you're drinking. What did I say? Prost? Slancha? Whatever they say. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. We're going to open this bar up again in March. We're going to open up the bar again, and we're going to talk free agency. We will look at this free agent class, and we will see who has signed and who hasn't signed. It'll be about a month from today. I will certainly send out Facebook messages, and I will tweet it out. I will put it on Blue Sky. But the week of the 10th, okay? The week of the 10th, we will be back that week on Thursday at 7 p.m. live. And we will go through some of the biggest free agency deals. And, hey, if something huge happens, maybe I decide to do a little crafts and kickoffs. Maybe I decide to drink a little bit of a beer. Might not be on a Thursday night. Who knows? But the next one I can guarantee you is the week of free agency when it kicks off, which is March 10th. The Thursday of that week, we'll be back here talking free agency. Marilyn says, yes, I love crafts and kickoffs. Well, thank you. Rams still pushing for beers and body slams. Corey D wants the Patriots to get Cooper Kupp. This is like at the end of the bar, right? Like this is like the last 20 minutes at a bar where people are just like, they're just screaming out what they're screaming out. The conversations. Nick, you're a liar. Where's your donut? You said you're going to eat it on the air. I said I might eat it on the air. And that was actually the Patriots podcast. So different podcast. I didn't promise anybody on Crafts and Kickoffs. I'm busy drinking. I can't drink beer and have a donut. That's weird. I mean, a beer and donut mix ain't good. You know what? There you go. Bill B. I'm sexy. See what happens? I kind of like this idea. Maybe we can have like a last call element for Crafts and Kickoffs for next season. Now I'm going to start brainstorming. All right, I got to get out of here. I got to eat dinner. Appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for your support throughout this football season. Again, back the week of March 10th to talk free agency. I will be doing the Patriots podcast tomorrow at 3 o'clock on YouTube. Swing on by and check that out. Appreciate every single one of you. Enjoy your drinks. Be responsible, but have some